Welcome. You've made it through another day. And now, as the world quiets around you, it's time to drift gently into the past. Tonight, we won't be telling stories of kings or generals. No, tonight is about the people history often forgets. It's the ones whose names are long gone. It's the ones whose jobs were unpleasant, exhausting, and, in many cases, surprisingly normal for their time. This is a story about the worst jobs in history. It's jobs that were difficult, dirty, sometimes dangerous, and yet someone had to do them, day after day, generation after generation. Not out of passion or prestige, but simply because the rhythm of life required it. We'll explore the daily lives of tanners and gong farmers, plague doctors and leech collectors, and servants who worked from dawn until nightfall. These people didn't shape history through grand declarations or mighty conquests. Shaped it with calloused hands, sweat-drenched brows, and quiet determination. You don't need to remember every detail. Just let the stories wash over you slowly, softly as we wander through the labor of the forgotten. So nestle under the covers, allow your breathing to slow, and imagine yourself walking through an old cobbled street, the air filled with the scent of smoke and damp earth. In a nearby alley, someone stirs a vat. Another hauls a barrel. The work never stops. But tonight, you don't have to work. Just listen. Let's begin with one of the oldest and least pleasant jobs in human history, the tanner. Imagine yourself waking up before the sun, not to bird song, but to the heavy scent of decay. A low mist clings to the ground. You step out onto the dirt path, your boots already stiff with yesterday's grime. The air is thick, not with the perfume of flowers or bread, but with something acrid. It's the smell of urine, of rotting flesh, of leather in the making. This is the world of the medieval tanner. Tanners were responsible for transforming animal hides into usable leather, an essential task for societies that needed boots, belts, bags, and armor. But it was not glamorous. Far from it. It was one of the most reviled jobs in a village, often relegated to the outskirts of town, downstream and downwind. The process began with raw hides, fresh from the butcher, often stiff with dried blood and still dotted with tufts of fur. The first task, soaking them, sometimes in plain water, often in something stronger. Urine was commonly used to help loosen the hair and soften the flesh. Human urine, collected in jars. Donated, sometimes sold by the townspeople. The hides would be stomped or stirred in the liquid until pliable. Then came scraping. A large wooden beam, called a tanner's horse, supported the hide as the tanner used a curved blade to remove hair and tissue. The work was repetitive and physically demanding. Your back would ache, your arms would burn. But the smell stayed with you. After scraping, the hides were soaked again. This time in a mixture of animal brains, lime, Oregon urine, depending on the method. Some tanners swore by dog droppings, believing it helped with the curing process. Eventually the hides were dried, then stretched and treated with oils or fats to make them supple. The result? Leather strong, durable, indispensable. But no one thanked the tanner. Children might mock them, neighbors might avoid them. They often lived in isolation, not because of law, but because of smell. A stench that soaked into the skin and hair, one that never quite faded. And yet their work was vital. Shoes were worn until they collapsed. Bags patched until they disintegrated. Leather straps held carts, tools, and clothing together. The tanner worked quietly, methodically, surrounded by flies and the sound of sloshing vats. This was not the world of knights or scholars. This was the rhythm of ordinary survival. And while the labor was ceaseless, the work had its own rhythm. One hide at a time, one day at a time. The seasons shifted, but the work remained. Rain or shine, snow or sun, the tanner toiled on. Every step of the process required patience, precision, endurance. On rare occasions, a tanner might teach an apprentice, a young boy, sent by a poor family hoping for a future trade. The apprentice would learn not from books but by doing, by inhaling the same pungent air, by scraping, stirring, enduring. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the tanner might wash his hands in the river, eat a simple meal, and sleep if the smell allowed it until the work began again. Not heroic, not glamorous, but necessary. As we leave the tanner behind, let us now walk forward in time and space to explore a figure that straddled the line between healer and harbinger. The medieval plague doctor. Imagine the clanging of distant bells, the muffled prayers drifting from behind closed shutters, the hurried footsteps of someone crossing the street not to greet a neighbor, but to avoid them. It is the year 1348, and Europe is in the grip of something invisible, something feared. The Black Death. Enter the figure of the plague doctor. Tall, cloaked in layers of black cloth and waxed fabric, face obscured by a long-beaked mask, with glass eyepieces that reflect the gray light. To some, he looks like a bird. To others, an omen. And yet he walks steadily, clipboard in hand. Pouch of herbs at his belt, not a bringer of comfort, exactly, but a presence, a professional, doing a job that few others would take. The plague doctor was not always a trained physician. In many cases, he was simply willing to walk into homes others had abandoned, willing to approach the sick, willing to take detailed notes on the dying and the dead. His role was part doctor, part administrator, part undertaker. He tracked cases, recorded symptoms, sometimes bled patients, sometimes applied poultices. Most of the time, he observed, helpless, yet necessary. That mask so iconic now is filled with aromatic herbs, lavender mint, sometimes vinegar-soaked sponges. It was believed the plague traveled through bad air or miasma, so the beak was a filter. Not effective, of course, but symbolic. Each day the plague doctor would walk a route, from house to house, marking homes, checking for signs, writing down who had died and when. In some cities, plague doctors were paid by the government. In others, they were private hire servants of noble families sent to assess risk. Some were respected, others feared. It was not a prestigious job, nor a safe one. Many died, but not dramatically, not in battle, quietly, alone. And yet, the work mattered. Through their records, we understand the spread of the disease. Through their presence, people found a small sense of order. Amid the chaos of plague, someone still knocked at the door, still counted the bodies, still remembered the names. The plague doctor's footsteps echoed through empty streets. A reminder that even in horror, someone had to do the work, not to cure, but to witness. And now, let us move from the black robes of the doctor to something even messier. Let us wade into the world of medieval waste. Imagine the silence of a medieval night. The streets are mostly empty. The city sleeps, save for the occasional bark of a dog or the quiet creak of timber as buildings settle. Candles flicker behind shuttered windows. And in the alleyways, in the shadows, someone moves. A gong farmer. No, not a musician. Not even close. Gong was a euphemism for human waste. A gong farmer was quite literally a collector of cess, a scooper of sewage, a remover of filth. Their job was to climb into cesspits and latrines often at night tanned, remove the buildup of human waste by hand, bucket by bucket, load by load. The smell, indescribable, the danger, considerable. Cesspits could be unstable. Gases could suffocate. The slurry could conceal sharp objects, disease, and rodents. But the job had to be done. Medieval cities lacked plumbing. Waste accumulated. And when pits filled, it was the gong farmer's call. Equipped with long-handled shovels, buckets, and often little more than rags to wrap their faces, gong farmers worked in the dark. Their carts rumbled down cobbled streets, destined for the outskirts, where the waste might be dumped or, ironically sold. Human waste was used as fertilizer. The pay for the time was decent, the work consistent, but the social cost immense. Gong farmers were ostracized, avoided. Children held their breath when they passed. They lived on the margins, both geographically and socially, and yet they were essential. Without them, the cities would overflow. Disease would spread faster. Waterways would be contaminated. Their work, unglamorous and nearly invisible, held the very foundations of public health. Today, in archaeological digs, cesspits are treasure troves. Preserved waste offers clues to diet, health, and daily life. Seeds, bones, parasites, all perfectly sealed in layers of human history. And it's all thanks to the gong farmer, who scooped and carted and emptied quietly, anonymously. Not remembered in songs, but remembered in the strata of the earth. Let us now move from the bowels of the city to the polished halls above two servants who moved silently through the estates of the elite. Now imagine a house, not a cottage or workshop, but a great manor. Tall windows, endless corridors, a staff of dozens. A household that ran like a machine, polished and precise. But beneath the chandeliers and polished floors was an army of workers. And at the very bottom of that hierarchy was the scullery maid. She was young, often no older than 12 or 13, sent from a poor family who could no longer feed her, or perhaps an orphan, taken in to earn her place with sweat and silence. Her job was simple in description, yet utterly consuming. She cleaned, but not with the convenience of running water or soap dispensers. She cleaned with lye, with boiling water hauled by hand, with brushes worn to the wood and fingers blistered from scrubbing. She cleaned the copper pans until they gleamed, washed vegetables still crusted with dirt, hauled coal, emptied ash, carried buckets from the pump to the sink, from the sink to the stove, from the stove to the waste, heap over and over, from before sunrise until long after sunset. Each day was the same, and yet subtly different. If the lady of the house was entertaining, the maid would rise even earlier. If there had been a storm, the walkways needed cleaning. If it was Sunday, extra care was needed in preparing for guests after church. No detail could be overlooked. She wasn't expected to speak. In fact, silence was preferred. If she passed a footman, she stepped aside. If she passed the butler, she bowed her head. And if the master of the house entered the kitchen, though he rarely did, she vanished into the background. Meals were taken quickly in the back corner of the servants' hall, cold leftovers when available. Sometimes nothing more than bread soaked in broth. Her bed, if she had one, might be tucked beneath the stairs or in a small alcove near the hearth. And yet she knew the pulse of the house better than most. She knew when the cook was in a foul mood, when the housekeeper was behind schedule, the young footman was sneaking off to meet the parlor maid. She listened, observed, adapted. Some scullery maids remained in service for years, gradually working their way up to kitchen maid, cook's assistant, or perhaps even head cook. Others left to marry, their time in service remembered as a season of exhaustion and growth. In a world that often told women they were ornamental, the scullery maid proved otherwise. She was vital. Without her, the kitchens would stall, the meals would falter. The rhythm of elite life would lose its hum. She was quiet strength, routine made flesh. And though history rarely remembers her name, she lived fully in motion, in duty, in perseverance. Now, as our journey nears its end and your breathing slows, let us leave her there by the warm oven, towel in hand, eyes steady, heart resilient. She was one of millions, one among the many whose labor, silent and unseen, shaped the world behind the scenes. And now, the sounds of labor begin to fade. Scrape of a tanner's blade, the quiet footfalls of the plague doctor, the slosh of a gong farmer's pail, the soft footsteps of a scullery maid all grow distant, like echoes carried away by the wind. You've journeyed through the forgotten work of forgotten people. Not emperors or explorers, not inventors or revolutionaries, but those whose hands shaped the background of history. Those who kept the wheels turning while others wrote the headlines. Tanners who bore the weight of stench and solitude to make something as simple and essential as a pair of shoes. Plague doctors who walked through silence and sorrow to record what others dared not see. Gong farmers who descended into filth so cities could breathe above ground. And scullery maids who never stopped moving, never stopped serving, even when no one saw them. These were not glamorous lives. They were real, honest, tireless. They remind us that most of history happened off stage, in kitchens, in alleyways, in cellars and fields. That the story of humanity is not only the rise and fall of empires, but also the everyday endurance of ordinary people. So as your thoughts drift now, let yourself relax into that rhythm. The rhythm of footsteps on stone, of water poured into basins, of pages turning quietly in the dark. The rhythm of a world long gone but never truly lost. You don't need to remember every name or every detail. Just know that they were there, and that for one quiet evening you remembered them. Sleep well, tomorrow will come. But for now, let the past keep you company. Good night.